Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session today with us. Uh, I think we'll be waiting for like a couple of more minutes for people to join. Um, cool. So while we are waiting, I would like to take some time to talk about TapChief. So TapChief is the easiest way for business professionals and to connect with experts on demand. TapChief is a marketplace where these experts can find curated gigs from top companies that match their skill set and join today, uh, join today to work on interesting high value opportunities. So to introduce both our speakers today, we have two amazing, really amazing speakers here with us. Both of them are experts and hold a lot of experience in their own respective fields. Our first speaker today is Ankita. She is an experienced user experience designer and she has worked in various top companies such as Samsung, Make My Trip, Amazon, and now Google. We are extremely happy to have you here as our speaker, Ankita. Welcome.
Thank you, Kaushik.
Our next speaker for the day is Sajal. Sajal is a user researcher with over five years of experience. Like our first speaker, even Sajal has worked with various top companies that include Xerox, JioSaavn, and now Flipkart. With that, I would like to welcome Sajal for today's session.
Thanks, Kaushik. Thanks for having me.
I think I would like to take some time to, talk about how this is a very humbling experience for me to host this session for both the speakers here today because both of them are experts at their own field, and I'm just starting out my career in design. I'm Kaushik. I'm a product design intern at TapChief, and it's a beautiful and a humbling experience to have this session with both of them. Both of them are really amazing, and I'm really looking forward to the entire session. They have a lot of inputs that is very important for someone starting out their career in design or someone who wants to switch their career to design. So So we are going to probably just wait for a few more minutes for more of our speakers to join. While we are doing that, I would like to hand over the space uh, to Ankita first. She can probably talk about her career in design and how it started. So over to you, Ankita.
Hello, everybody who's on the live session. It's really a thrilling experience to be here today. And I think it's the most human interaction I am having post this whole COVID situation, probably because we know that everything is almost going like in a virtual format right now. And this is one of a though I belong to a very strong design formal design education, but this is one of the closest topic to my heart because I keep getting asked this question a lot of times, that how do we navigate our career into UX design, uh, whether it is for people who are newbies with no formal education, formal education, or somebody who's switching their career. Just to give a little background of my story and my journey so far, I started my education in design as a bachelor in interior design. I did my bachelor's in interior design, and post that I worked for 1 year in the as an interior designer, designing on several projects. While I was working in that space, I realized that all this is very good and it's great, but I want to actually take further my design understanding and make sure that this whatever my the experience I'm designing, or whatever I'm trying to design for people, reaches a more wider audience. And I knew that physical spaces were not really the answer for that, because it's obviously it is limited to a certain set of people who will be interacting with that. So I thought, how do I take this up further in a more scalable way? How do I put forward my thinking of design in a more wider perspective? And that's when I came across this course at NID, which is Strategic Design Management. It was a very open-ended course, and we learned a lot of basics in terms of design and how design and businesses can combine together for user business growth, and as long along with that, user growth. Eventually, by the end of my course, I had to select a stream, and that's when this whole UX boom was coming up, and I got really interested with how technology and design merges to create some really fantastic and unique products. Like how Google search just changed the whole the way we look at things, how maps has changed the way people navigate their way on today, and now all these products which are coming, these digital project products which are coming, and now it's almost unimaginable to live our life without these products. And that's when I started my first job at Make My Trip. It was also very special for two reasons. A, it was my first job. B, it was a sector which was very close to my heart, which is traveling. I was trying to create experiences for people who were traveling, and I'm very fond of traveling. So, but while I was at Make My Trip, I realized that I probably want to go a little one level down and not just design for the most niche audience, but people who are just early smartphone adopters, because this I wanted to design for everybody. And that's when I came across this opportunity at a very small startup called Indus OS. They were trying to change the way people were using their smartphones in India by bringing them closer to the mother tongue, because a lot of problems originated because as people who were early smartphone users were finding it challenging to use their phones in English. English is not really our first language. So they were trying to solve this challenge by making the phones usable in 22 different regional languages of India. And that was a truly enriching experience. I learned a lot there. I grew a lot there as a designer. And then I shifted to Amazon and, worked with some of the amazing people, and then eventually landed up to Google now. And I'm trying to design for the next million users. I'm trying to continue the stream from my previous companies and my previous projects to design for the next 100 million users in for Google Pay in India. So yeah, that has been my journey so far, and we'll discuss more while we go to the questions. Over to Sajal now.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. To all those people who are listening to this right now, watching this, first of all, welcome and thank you for giving your time to us and listening to our whatever points we have to make. Okay, so I'll just start with my brief intro. I would just say that I've got a mixed bunch of experience in education. I'll just tell you what I've been up to recently. So I'm working as a user researcher now. It's been 2 years. I've been working with Flipkart. Prior to that, I was working with JioSaavn, which wasn't JioSaavn back then. So I spent about 1.5, close to 2 years in Savan, and before that, I worked with Xerox Research doing slightly academic version of user research. That's HCI research. Prior to that, I did my master's in interaction design from IDC. That's at IIT Bombay, and that's how I entered into the whole industry of user research and UX design. But just like a lot of people in India, I also started by being an engineer. So I am an electronics engineer. I had a background in there. Throughout my engineering course, I used to think that I want to do something very creative. And I won't lie, just when I got out of my engineering college, I told my parents that I want to be an artist, and I actually spent 6 months of my life with painters because I wanted to become a painter. Then there was nothing about UX design. UX design as a term, I don't know if that existed back then. That time, I think it used to be called as multimedia designer, web designers. I wasn't interested in that. And I think the way I came across design was also by luck. I came across one artist who said, you can mix engineering plus creativity and do design. So that's how I entered into interaction design. It was purely by luck. In fact, when I graduated in 2014 from interaction design, at that time, user research as a profession also probably wasn't that popular. There were very few openings. So I think as I moved along, I kind of discovered what really these jobs are, and the doors started opening. So I think it's such a nascent field. It's such a emerging field that even I had not decided that I'll become a user researcher 5 years back. So whatever is happening right now, it's pretty exciting, and I see great future potential in both these fields, whether it's user experience design or research. So yeah.
That's great, Sajal. I would like to welcome both of you again. So I would not like to waste any more time or anything else. Let's get started. So we actually collected quite a lot of questions from our users and viewers that on Typeform. So we have a couple of those questions which we would like to address. We are also getting a few questions on the live which are also in alignment with these questions. So I would like to start off with the first question, which is, how does one go about getting into UX research or design if they probably have no formal education in design, or they are probably coming from a complementary field like, let's say, marketing, or probably an engineering field like software development? So how does one start their career in UX or UX research?
Right. Maybe I'll go first on the design part, and then Sajal can touch us the aspect of the research part. So, like any other career, you have to be very sure of what are the reasons you are actually planning to get into the field, whether it is your passion, whether it is your interest, or all the right reasons. So first list out your reasons, and once you are done with it, once you know that what is the why you are making a career switch for, and then eventually the most basic thing, like in any other career, is you try to gain more knowledge about it. So you try to understand what is the day-to-day work of a UX designer, what it entails, and what are your future prospects. And when it comes to gaining knowledge about design as a career, I would say formal education is definitely an advantage. But having said that, it is not, it's not going to be a deterrent for you if you cannot get one, because I totally understand it's not possible for anybody and everybody to get an education investing that amount of time, effort in that area. You can always learn. We have tons of resources online available today, and you can learn about things there. And when I talk about how you make a transition from a complementary field, so let's just take an example of marketing. Marketing, what is the core of a marketing? You need to understand your users, the research part of it. So even marketing folks do a lot of research to understand their consumer behaviors, and so do UX designers. They also, with the help of user researchers, they also do a lot of research to understand their users, and that's one of the core of UX design. So there lies a similarity, and you both the field have an underlying principle, which is making your product desirable. So marketing also work towards making their product desirable for their customers, and user experience designers also try to make the best experience for their users, to make it desirable for them to use the product. And the third part is, one thing which marketing can really do good is, they can also balance the business needs plus the user needs. So this is a great advantage for becoming a good UX designer, because you may sure well design a very good product for your users, keeping in mind all their needs. But then again, the business needs also come in, because you have to make money at the end of the day eventually if you want to sustain in the market. So that covers how you do in marketing. And let's say if you're moving from other design aspect, other design fields, then in that case, you have a basic sense of design. You understand, and again, the underlying principle remains the same, that you understand who your customers are or who your users are. What are you designing for? So that purpose and who you are designing for has to be very clear. And it could be any field of design. You can take graphics, you can take fashion, you can take interiors, any field. You have to know who your users are, and that is again an underlying principle for UX design. So I see a very good overlap there, and if you build on those skills a little more, you can definitely become a good UX designer. And let's talk about something more like a tech oriented role. If you want to move, you want to make a career switch from tech, then in that case you do understand what engineering goes behind it. Also, you do understand a lot of how products function. So it's more about, you understand the technology. Now you need to know the creative side of it. So if you polish on that knowledge a little bit, you can definitely make yourself as a good UX designer. So this is how, various, I would say, careers can make transition into UX design. And the basics remain the same, which we'll talk about, a lot of UX processes, which we'll talk about in the moving questions, that will give us a fair knowledge to people on what resources and what else they can do to make a career in the UX design field. Over to you, Sajal, for the research part.
Right, right. I think great answers, because there's a lot of overlap I can see in design and user research. So let's pick up this topic, which is how does one start career in UX research? And I will bucket this in answer into three various aspects. Okay, so one is, as Ankita also mentioned, that if you have a background which is completely away from user research or design, right? You could be coming from marketing side, or let's say engineering side, or something to do with science. Someone has done bachelor of science, master of science, and so on. That's one category. The other is a slightly non-science background, so you have something which is not really design, but in between, so some creative work, which is, let's say, marketing is one of them, or advertising, trying to understand this bit. And third is, if you have a background in design already, or something to do which is very close to other designs. So for example, you could be a graphic designer, or you could be a mobility vehicle designer, and so on and so forth. And as you can understand, that the difference or the delta from where you are and where you want to be is going to be large. And if the difference is larger, you will have to take bigger step or a bolder step to cover that distance. So let me start with engineering side or completely technical background, and you want to break into this. So one is understand that what kind of advantage you have and how can you utilize that. So for example, I'll take both the views, which is formal education versus informal. So the thing with formal education is that if you were to apply to IDC or any of these design schools at the IITs, what they really look for is what have you done with the skills or learning that you have already developed. So for example, I had developed toys out of scrap electronics, and that was a creative way of expressing my creativity with whatever knowledge I had. So that's one way to do it. That how can you demonstrate creativity with whatever knowledge you have? And that applies whether you are going for formal education or not. So that's one. The other is, if you were into something which is a complementary field like a marketing, I think there's a lot of overlap, at least with the user research, because you are going to understand users' behavior. In marketing also, you try to understand people's sentiment, their attitude, their behavior, and try to build products around it. In marketing, the objective is different, that you try to either understand users pulse and try to see how can there be a what kind of price point would be good, advertisement efficacy, and so on. So those topics are slightly different than product designing, but it's still very third is, if you are a designer already, which means if you're an interior designer, fashion designer, mobility vehicle designer, graphic designer, I think you already have a great advantage, because design process ultimately remains the same. There are definitely some of the nuances which you pick up if you were to design digital products. But essentially, if you understand design process thoroughly, then it would be an advantage for you, for sure. Lastly, I will just say a couple of points that you can keep in mind if you are starting out, which is that why are you doing, which even Ankita pointed out, that why are you doing what you're doing? Be very clear about this. A lot of people think they're passionate or they're interested in that. The only thing about design is that you have to do it to realize that. You cannot just look at it or see the buzzwords and be like, oh, wow, this is what I want to do. You need to really demonstrate it. And this is, if you go to a company, if you go to an educational institute, they will all ask you one thing: can you demonstrate about your creativity or your ideas? So that's there. Also realize what's your strength and weakness. For example, a lot of people either get very intimidated saying that, oh, I don't have good visual design skills, so can I go into design? You can. I mean, there are a lot of other components that you can definitely contribute to, and that's there. And in certain times, someone would say that, hey, I want to get into UX design, but I don't know coding. Is it okay? again, perfectly all right. So you figure out what are your strength and weakness, and then move ahead. What you should definitely not do is get into something of like a UX design or research because it's a new buzzword, or you are seeing this around, or you're hearing this around. So you should try to avoid that. So yeah, I mean, there's one line which I follow a lot, which is you must act out your passion before you feel it. So before you say that it's your passion, just give it a try. Try doing this, and then if you really feel that you're passionate about it, that it will come out. So yeah.
Great. That was really insightful. I'm sure like our and the people who are watching this video right now have a better understanding about UX design and user research tools. Uh, we had a live question from Pranav: how to navigate your way into design field if one has BTech degree instead of B design degree. I think you answered it really well, Sajal, and Ankita as well. You highlighted a lot of points. Now, one thing that is really important while making a career change is also learning the process. So, what are the resources which you would recommend for someone who's just starting out in UI UX field? What are the kind of resources that they could go through to learn?
Right. So I think one of the three aspects of any learning would be that you always get the basics. And like any other field, design is a lot about basics. We see a lot of times people get carried away by good-looking screens, which are there on various platforms, which is Dribble, LinkedIn, and those things. But that is not something which is going to make you a good designer. You have to get your basics right. I mean, you can always copy those screens. It's almost like if once you've learned a tool, it's like a practice exercise you could do by taking up some screen, or you can easily copy what Facebook or LinkedIn looks like today. But always give a good thought of why it is designed in that way. So understand the basics, like what is the typography, the spacing, the alignment, and I'm slightly talking more in the actionable format and not the user part of it. uh, that is all about how a design process and principle looks like. So the next step is you also need to know what are the design process and principles. So there are various good design, I would say, processes which you can look at, which is, one is a design sprint process, which is a Google process. One is an IDEO design process. You can look at these processes. You will find a lot of similarities already existing in them, because overall a design process is nothing different. It's just like what is the outcome you want from them. They cater to accordingly. So you try to get your design processes, the design, how the design principles work, what are the good best practices, and then also along with these are something which are basics which you need to know all your life. But how do you also keep yourself updated by various trends? And that you could do by reading a lot of articles on Fast Company, which brings you a lot of articles. And then you have Medium, you have a dedicated space in Medium which is called like a UX collect. There you can read a lot about the UX case studies. So those could be one. And then when it comes to tools, I have one word of caution here, that tools are never going to make you a great designer. It's Tools will come and go. Every year there is a new tool. What will make you a good designer is how well you can express your ideas. So even if you can sketch out your ideas and express it in a good way as a designer, that's more than enough. What is important is how well you are expressing your idea, and not which tool are you perfecting at. So that is one. And there are tons of resources available. You can, to start with, you can go with Google Material Design as a resource. It tells you one of the best practices of Google Material Design, like the way you design the UX design processes. Like it talks a lot about the nuanced things in design, the UX design process, which is all about, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, because that is how good products look like. They have all those things laid out for you. There is Atlassian design for that, and they again are very similar to what Google Material Design is. And they provide an advantage that you end up also being updated with the trend. So this is how I would say, I would swear by three things. One is absorb, apply, and feedback. So absorb a lot of these things, but at the same time apply it, because if you just keep absorbing a lot of content and if you don't apply it, you will never know how far have you progressed. And then after applying, also try to take a lot of feedback, because from your perspective it may look, everything may look right, but when you understand from more people that what do they think about it, you'll get a better understanding on where you are right now. So if you do these few things, you definitely can start off your journey as a UX designer.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally relate with the Google material design part. When I started as a UI UX design intern back in 2018, my first task as an intern was to go through material design word by word. And I read through the entire documentation. So I can really understand where you're coming from and where you tell that, design is not just all about the visuals, but rather how the design works. So I think Sajal could probably highlight on user research and how they can user research part and how one can go through the learning process of it and the learning curve of it.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So here I would start with sharing my own journey. So in 2014, when I started out, there were no such opening. The first time I guess user researcher as a profile came in our campus was 2015, which was 1 year later. So until that time, I just wanted to work in research. I was pretty clear that research is what I want to do. So I first went to IIT Guwahati. I worked there for a few months, and then one of my senior was working in Xerox Research. So he said, "Hey, would you like to do internship?" So even after graduating, I did a full-time internship with Xerox because that's how you got into research profiles. And even now, internships are probably one of the best way to convert into full-time user research role or any research role. So all the big companies, they if they had to pick up those youngest, like the students, then they will pick up through internship. So that is definitely one of them, and I also entered through that. So basically with internship, you get a chance to demonstrate your skills. You will have a research project that you can show it to either your next employer or even your that employer which gave you internship. So that's one of the best ways. Now I think but the next bit is, which is the resources, and I see a lot of questions coming around that what are the resources that you can do. Again, I would say that resources would also depend on where are you and where do you want to be, right? So from point A to point B, if your distance is too high, then you will have to take that kind of steps. So if you're someone young, you who have just graduated or have a couple of years of experience, I would highly recommend if you can get through some of the good design schools, because it will lay great foundation to your design understanding. So that's going to be my number one recommendation, is actually go and get into a good institute. And there are IITs, there are NIDs, and some other private institutes which are coming up. So if you can afford, yes, and do calculate your own ROI. Where are you currently? What's your salary level like, and what's the salary level of the placements that are coming up? That's available freely on the internet. So you calculate your ROI in terms of salary, in terms of your passion, and how serious you are, and do take that plunge. I do not regret going to IDCI. It was 2 very wonderful years of my life. Now, having said that, not everyone would be in the position to take a master's course and do that. So for them, if you're already working in a technology company, if it's a technology product or technology services company, you can definitely amp up your knowledge through secondary resources. Again, in this, my priority would be first books. I am a guy who reads a lot of books, because in a profession like user research, you read a lot, you write a lot. So books are definitely your go-to place for learning. It's also a structured way of learning rather than picking up medium blogs, which are very unstructured, random. So pick up books. Some of the really good books are, About Face by Alan Cooper. That's one of the great book. Sketching User Experience, Bill Buxton. That's amazing. So it gives you idea about this whole user experience, research plus design, that kind of view. And there are quite a few other books as well that are there. Then comes your videos versus video courses. So something like Coursera or edX, and those kind of things. I think if you're doing for learning those things, they are excellent courses. But if you think I'm doubtful about the value of those certifications. You can definitely pay and get those certificates, but how valuable is it to break into industry? Maybe not that much. Then comes your articles and videos, which are on YouTube and Medium. I would give low priority. Go for them only for very specific topics. So, but for building structured understanding, once you know what are the topics that you want to delve into, then you can go into articles and videos. And lastly, what I would say is that whether it's UX design or research, anyone who's planning to hire you or even give you admission in masters will ask you to give some demonstration. What have you done? Even if it is a college project, internship project, it's okay. But what have you done? How did you do it? Why did you pick up that particular method? And how did you do? So doing is going to be the biggest thing. So as I said, let me just summarize my points. In terms of how do you enter, what are the best resources for learning? Go get a degree if it is possible. If not, then the second would be finding a mentor and trying to learn from them. So find a mentor within your company or outside. Third is secondary sources like books. I would prioritize books over anything. Then comes the video courses on Coursera and edX. Then lastly comes your articles on Medium and videos on YouTube. So that's there.
Great. That's quite a lot of learning resources for someone, and definitely I would want to read all those books that you mentioned. Uh, so we actually have a very interesting question from one of the viewers. How is a digital product designer different from a UX designer? Ankita, would you want to take this up?
Yeah, I think it's just about, it's about the same thing. If you see a digital product, so basically what is UX designer? A UX designer is somebody who works on the user experience aspect of it. Mostly that user experience is a digital user experience, and of a digital product. But having said that, user experience could be more as used as a generic word. So it's the same thing. And with digital, you can actually have just any digital interface as a medium. It could be a phone, it could be a laptop, and basically, so you are end up designing an app or a website, and for an or for a tablet, versus a UX designer can slightly go ahead and get into the interplay of space plus digital. So we are also getting into the whole world where you're using the digital design or user experience design in spaces. So there you have an interplay of, let's say you enter a place and you have the sensory, we also call that as a new media design. You have a sensory experience which involves a lot of digital design plus the whole user experience aspect of it. So I would say user experience could become a more broader implication of designing experience for the user, whereas digital could limit to certain digital mediums only.
Great. I mean that was a question from my side as well, that was cleared. So once we are done with the learning aspect of it, I think the next part of making a career in UX design is actually starting with creating your portfolio, right? So what are the key things that you would advise someone to keep in mind while creating a UX design portfolio, at the same time a user research portfolio?
Right. I think, yeah. So portfolio is one of the key things, and no matter whether you had a formal college degree or you did a crash course, or you have like 12 years of experience or 15 years of experience anywhere, till date, wherever I go for any kind of design opportunity, the first and the foremost things which is asked is my portfolio. So portfolio is one of the key things for a designer, and I think I will let Sajal speak for the user researcher later on. But portfolio is one of the key things about being a designer, and it actually it demonstrates your thought process, and that's why no amount of tools, skills, or companies or brands you have written on your resume is going to work in your favor as much as portfolio. And I can share like some of the personal experience. Often I get asked that what would Google look in a portfolio, and the candidates who are applying. And I just want to say one basic thing here, not just Google, any company you go to, what they look in your portfolio is how how you think as a designer and what is your process. Because and what you bring to the table, because that's what is important to them, that what do you think as a designer. And so you always in a portfolio you have to demonstrate some key projects of yours, where you can show how you think as a designer. And the more the variety you can show, the more it shows that how your overall thinking process as a designer is. And along with that, if you show in your portfolio what is your contribution, so you could be actually a part of a larger organization, and this I'm talking for from the perspective of people who are already in design, that you could be a part of larger organization, but your role could be really small in a project. But and you could be a part of a smaller organization, but you would have handled the project entirely end to end. So it is very important for you to very well articulate what was the project about and what you did for it, because ultimately at the end of the day what the company wants to look at is what would you bring to the table if we hire you. And that applies to not just design but any other company. So while you're making your portfolio, make sure the kind of projects you choose clearly demonstrates that process of design for you. And some of the key, I would just take a little bit of time to talk about what are the resources you could use. And I've already spoken about like how you could refer to Google Material Design and Atlassian Design, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel, and you also want to stay like in sync with what are the best practices. Then always make sure that you where you're getting your resources, like your fonts, your icons. And so you can actually refer to a lot of free resources, but the credible ones like Noun Project and Flaticons for your icons, or Google Material icons also. And for your images there are certain free but credible sources to get your images from. And you can use any tools for design like Sketch, Figma, Adobe XD, whichever you're comfortable with, and you can make like simpler animations in InVision if you're starting for. Make sure you make like a comprehensive portfolio which tells your story as a designer. That's more important, and that will take you a long way than any other design course or a crash course or any amount of years of experience.
Great. I think I can completely relate with that aspect because for the longest time I used to think that adding really good visual screens is how you make a UX or UIX portfolio. And I mean, I realized only a couple of months ago that showing the process is more important. So I think I'll hand it over to Sajal so that he can speak more on the lines of user research.
Right. Yeah. One thing I was observing even in the question section is about. So I will combine both these things, which was a past topic was about learning resources and portfolio. So what I see is people are asking that if I've got a 5-day or a 6-day job, 6 days a week job, so how do I do that? If I've done courses, then what do I do next, and so on. One thing I see from questions here and otherwise is that they're looking at people are looking at these courses as a way of validating that if they do these courses, they get validated and then get placement. And I think that that's not the best way to approach it. You should look at these resources as source of knowledge and think of validation from whatever you do practically. And so I'll just pick up one question, which is that what can you do if you're working in a job which is already, maybe it is in tech or whatever. So one of the simplest thing that you can do, and that's also what I did even before I got into design school, was pick up a problem which is around you. Right? It need not be a digital product. It could be just a problem that you face in your daily life, and try to see how you can solve it. Right now, I know we cannot interact with too many people. But if you live in a family of 4, or you have your maybe siblings or any family members around, just ask them what do they face problem in day life, and try to see if you can solve their problem for it. And if you can really actually solve that and document that properly, that hey, I started with observing that my mother was having problem in kitchen, and she was not able to do inventory management in fridge, right? The vegetables get spoiled very quickly. Then how can you solve this? It's an inventory management problem. So how can you design a simple solution? Can you design a digital solution, and so on and so forth? If you are working in a company, right, try to find a problem that is faced by some of your colleagues. Ask them, and I'm pretty sure if you ask anyone and ask them that do they face any problem in their day-to-day work, they will say yes. Then go ahead and solve that, because ultimately design is nothing but to understand people's problem and to solve it, right? That's ultimately design thinking. There's no big certifications you need, or this. If you understand this process through the core, then it's what comes next is how do you first understand. So user research is about systematically understanding user problem. Design is taking those insights and converting into a product. So that's ultimately that. So for all those people who are asking that, hey, I have a job, what do I do, or I'm in this particular situation, just notice around, do you see a problem? So I'll tell you my example. I used to stay in Mumbai, and I used to travel from Kanjurmarg to Sion, that's in central line in Mumbai. And I used to observe one problem very, very often, which is that people used to stick posters, and railway authorities used to pay a lot to just clean that up. So I had once thought of an idea that how can you create a material which had some sort of pores in it, so that it won't let these things stick. The other problem was littering in stations. That how can you solve that problem? Can you create a dustbin which can stand the pressures, or all the problems that so many people coming to local train stations and so on. So you look at everyday life that you look at the problems that you face in day-to-day life, whether yourself or someone else, and then try to do. The other is one very quick example that you can actually do right now, just after you finish with this video. Pick up any product that you use, okay, Zomato, Swiggy, whatever product that you use in day-to-day life. Just do an audit. Have you ever ordered from any of these food ordering apps and faced any problem? Just take a screenshot and try to critique that what really went wrong with that, okay? Maybe ask 4 or 5 people around you and say that simple task. Can you order food from this app? And just observe them and ask them what is going in your mind while you're doing this. This is called as one of the basic things, which is usability evaluation and think aloud method. That's a very, very strong tool to understand someone's problem with any digital product. So go out and start doing it, and don't look for validation from so and so certification and so these things. So those are ultimately going to give you a place or a platform to create these projects only. So ultimately, even educational institutes or certification courses are going to give you these projects, and these are the projects that will show it further. If you can find and do it by yourself, well and good. If you want to get a validation from some external agency, well and good.
Yeah, and just that was a great point which Sachal brought about. I thought I would just add this thing that there's a whole trend which we see these days where people get just taken away by somebody has put in a screen of a redesign of a LinkedIn page or a Facebook page, and or some of these famous product companies. While that could be a good exercise, but you need to question: are you just kind of overhauling the page by a visual design exercise, or are you really thinking through? Because placing the button from top to the bottom is not going to make you a designer. You're just kind of rearranging the elements on the screen, or just cleaning up the screen a little bit by taking away some features from the product. But you have to really be sure that why that product was designed in a certain way, and if you can suggest a better interaction, or if you can suggest a better design for the product, keeping in mind those core values of that product, then that I would say is a successful case study or a successful design, rather than just overhauling one single screen and putting it on various platforms asking for feedback. So I would say don't get sucked up in this whole culture of visual design and putting up good looking screens, because that's not really a good UX case study which can go in a portfolio. And it's what your thought process was while designing it is what will matter eventually.
Great. I think we also have a question from the live viewers, which is how important are case studies in our portfolio? I think case studies form a, a very, I mean, I don't know how to put it across. Like it's a very essential part of your portfolio if you're a UX designer. So I think both of you could probably add on to that and explain and share your thoughts.
Right. So, you know what, not just in design, but what generally is a case study? A case study is more like, a narration of starting from a problem to a solution. It talks about a journey, and that's what we have just spoken some, few minutes back, that how important it is for you to portray your journey as a designer in terms of how you started with a problem and how you kind of designed a solution for it. So, case studies are absolutely critical, because if you make and if you show like a half baked product without any background thinking over it, then that's something which is not going to show what you bring, the value as a designer. And it also tells, case studies also kind of narrates a story which people can connect to. So case studies are nothing but just a live example or something which could relate to an everyday example. And then it makes you, it gives a better connection to what you are trying to say and what you are trying to solve. So it's an absolute critical thing, and you can really not miss a case study when you're making a portfolio.
Definitely. Uh, I, I, I mean, I would hand it over to Sajal and I would want to know his thoughts as well on this.
Right, sure. I think case study or any particular project that you have done, especially in user research, is utmost important. It's almost like that is what, on the basis of which you will get a call from either a company or maybe even educational institute that you are planning to apply. As Ankita said, it's almost like telling a narrative that what was the problem that you observed, how did you understand that, and how did you respond to that. I'll just share one of the example that recently happened to me, which was sent by someone who's recently graduated in some social science background. And she came from, let me just put it, a very Ivy League sort of a background from a US university. And she had shared with me a publication, a paper, in which was about very, very esoteric topic about particular food item which will influence someone's mood. Now, there is nothing wrong with that. What happened with that is the description. So she had shared a paper with me, and it had a lot of elaborate thing about calculations and which survey and what, and so on and so forth. A lot of mathematics around it. There's nothing wrong with it, but the problem was that it was not able to communicate clearly what was the problem, or what was the topic that she wanted to understand. How did she approach it? What method did she pick up? Then what was the insights and finding, and what's the discussion, or what do we take away as a reader of that particular piece. So I think essentially, if you are applying for a user research profile for any company, whether it's internship, full-time job, what the company or the interviewer will look for is what have you done in past. So if you picked up a problem, what was that problem? How big was that problem? What was the user base? Who was the target audience for that? What did you do to understand? Did you use a in-depth interview? Did you use a focus group? Did you do a usability evaluation? Did you do a think aloud? What did you do? And there are various methods out there. Why did you pick up that method? Why not something else? Then once the data started coming in, which is your user studies that you did, how did you assimilate that? What did you do to analyze that? How did you come to the conclusion that these are the top findings? And from those findings, what were your recommendations? Or if you can work upon some of the solutions, that would be well and good. So again, I'll reiterate my previous point which I made, that find a problem that's interesting to you, that fascinates you, or that is really, really concerning you. Pick that up. Try to understand people around you, that are they also facing the problem? What about it? Try to study it, systematically document that, and then try to attempt, hey, can we solve this problem? You can either do it by yourself, or you can involve those people around you and say that, hey, let's build. And you don't need elaborate softwares and all. Just do it in pen and paper, sketch it out. And that's what we learn in design schools also. Before you even pick up any software, pick up pen and paper, pencils, just sketch out, and sketch out a lot. This is what I would say. Even as a researcher, I sketch out a lot. So I would say that yes, pick up cases around you. Don't need to go further. You don't even need to pick up the popular products that just because it's very popular that you will pick up. You can pick up anything that is not even popular. But how did you respond to it? That's going to be most important.
Great. That's a very detailed and beautiful approach for how to go about case studies. So we have another question with us from the type form which we released earlier. According to you, should one focus on getting experience through internships first, or doing freelance work and enhance one's portfolio to get a job?
Right. I think it totally depends upon whether you are getting what kind of opportunity you are getting, because my understanding of freelance work is that if you are starting as a freelancer, somebody would even whether it is an internship or a freelancer, mostly people would want to see some credibility, some kind of past work you have done before you even get commissioning you with that kind of work. So let's say you are getting an internship just provides you an environment to kind of learn and thrive among people while you are working on it. It brings in the perspective. However, if you understand how a freelance work is done, somebody comes to you to get some work done because they don't have that expertise in that field already. So probably as a starter, it makes sense to first do projects and get feedback from people, and that happens when you are in an environment where there are people to give you feedback on what you are doing. So it becomes a slightly ideal environment to work, either work on something and then get feedbacks from people, rather than just starting on your own and maybe kind of learn doing something in a wrong way. And because the other person who is giving you the work may not be the expert and not the best judge of telling you that this is probably which is not going to work for me. So understand first that what is your expertise, if you can add a value by doing a freelance work or not. And internship or any kind of work where you can get feedback from people would be ideal. But then obviously you have to understand if you not everybody may get that same kind of environment. So what is important, as we have already you kind of reiterated that thing again, that it's most important to put your understanding into application, your applicable format. So far you are doing something to get more knowledge and more learning, everything makes sense. And it's getting feedback is very, very crucial on your work.
Great. Sajal, would you want to add some points to that?
So what I would say is that whether I think I had made that point earlier also, depending on which stage or where you are. So if you are in school right now, I think well and good prepare for design undergraduate courses. I also see some of the questions over here that what if someone is in school? I think we didn't cover that. So if you are still in school or you know someone who's in school, then IITs offer BDES courses also. The exam to give is called USEED, and you can find more information on internet. NID also has undergraduate courses in design, so you can look into that. There are other private institutes that you can check out. Again, you can do your own research around what's the ROI like, how much is the fees, and how much are you going to get back. So if you're in school, target those schools, and that would be good. You can further do masters around it. Now, if you are already in let's say design school or even non-design school, so just to give example, Flipkart, we got some of the interns who are doing engineering from IITs, and we got them to do internship in Flipkart, and that's definitely one of the best ways to enter industry. As I said, I also did internship in Xerox before I could move on to full-time job into research, because research is such a niche field right now that very few people are into it. And until unless you have solid background, people don't generally hire. So internship definitely becomes one of the best ways to enter industry if you want to get into user research. And lastly, I would say that if your company already has a user research division or a design division, try to see if you can laterally shift there if you're already working in there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point because when you are going through an internship, you're also like, learning from all the experienced designers in that particular company. So it's a great way, probably even to sometimes even discover new tools or probably discover a new way of design process. So yeah, I definitely agree with the internship approach. Considering the fact that I freelance as well as intern as well. uh, we have another question. It's actually pretty interesting, and we did not really cover on this. What is the best approach to find a mentor?
Right. I think I've been answering the questions. Like I am the first to answer the questions all this while. I'll let Sajal take up that answer first.
Uh, okay, that's a tough question because even I was thinking for a bit that who do I look up as mentor. I think again depends on which stage you are, where you are right now. I think when I was doing my masters, the teachers in IDC, those were my mentors, and I am still in touch with them. They have guided me so far. Once you enter industry, you will find people who are at least a couple of years ahead of you, and you can learn from them. Uh, what I personally do is I try to uh, at least interact with or reach out to those people who are in three stages. Okay, one is just couple of years ahead of me, so maybe one grade or two grade above me, and those are the people who will give immediate advice at what you can do to get to the next level. That's one. The other is your mid management level or people who are managing certain teams, so those are slightly senior. So what they give you guidance about is how do you manage not just your project but also a team and other people, so that and then you have someone who's in a senior leadership position, and then you can get their guidance about, hey, if you were to look 10 years 15 years ahead in time, then how you can plan out your path right now. So that's one way to look about it, that you find people where is it that you are and where do you want to be, and look that delta, that next 3 years who do you see would be a great person that or a great position where you want to be, and try to find people in that. Now how do you go ahead and find them? My personal way is actually my personal like my professional network. So I already come from design school, so it's easy for me to reach out to those people. If it is a college senior, someone working in other company, and I can reach out and ask them that, hey, I'm looking for some guidance regarding this part of my career. So that's fine. Fortunately for me, in my company itself, I've got some really talented user researchers, and they're senior to me, so I learn a lot. So just my peers and my seniors in Flipkart, they have been great. But otherwise, I also have the great privilege of being knowing some professors from IDC who have industrial experience. So those are the people I look for 15 20 years ahead of my life, because they have that kind of experience. So I would just ask people that if you can get through your social network first, that's great. LinkedIn is also great, but then if you're approaching people who on LinkedIn, then make sure and set expectation that what is it that you're looking for, and ask and let them know that how much time commitment are you expecting from them, and what would you do about it. So that's how I would say.
Yeah. Uh, I think all the points are, great points, Sajal, which you've put forward. If I carry on that last point of yours, yes, I have also pretty much followed the same path when I have been looking for mentors in my life. Like while I was trying to get entry into design colleges, I mostly looked up to people who were either in the same course or they were passed out. They passed out from the same course, and mostly it would happen like I would contact 10 people, and out of that only one, three would respond, and maybe out of that three, one would be willing to help, and that's all okay about it. But having said that, LinkedIn is a great medium to approach people, but I see, I often get requests where people just ask me about, hey, can you tell me more about design or UX design? Now, I at this request, I don't know what to respond to, because I see that the person doesn't really have clarity, or just asking me something about, can you tell me more about design or UX design? I somehow, get confused. What would I add more, which is already not there on Google, or which is already not there in the resources which is available out there on the internet. So I think what Sajal pointed out, that you have to set the expectations right, is one of the key things when you are approaching a mentor. So not everybody would be, firstly, not everybody would be willing to mentor, because everybody has their own personal reasons. Not everybody would have the time, and also, having said that, don't always just randomly message people because they are at all these coveted organizations, and you think you can only learn from them. You can learn from anybody who is doing great work. So always try to look up to people, what kind of work they are doing. It may be possible that people are doing great work, but they're not really the right people to teach you, because not everybody can do great work but also teach somebody the same thing which they are doing. So you have to make sure that somebody who is really good enough to mentor you is you need to find that kind of a person. You will see a lot of people active on LinkedIn or all these social platforms. There are platforms where people give feedbacks to newbies or designers. So you can go to these platforms to find more people who are, a, they are doing good work, and b, they are willing to mentor you if you have like the right set of questions and the right set of expectations. So always make your goal what you want from the mentor, what you want to learn from the mentor. First, do your pre-work before you go to the mentor, so that you don't end up asking those broad-ended questions. And then eventually find the right person to mentor you. Don't just go by the brand names on where they are working or what their past experiences is.
Definitely. I would actually like to add few things. Uh, as Ankita suggested, it's extremely important to understand uh, what you actually want out of those mentors, what you want from their time, because their time is extremely valuable as well. And usually, when you phrase your questions in the right format, where you know what you're looking for, it's a great way. And this has actually worked for me, where I've approached multiple people with particular problems, and they have been able to help me through it, because I was able to convey my point in the right manner. So there is actually one thing which we missed out while talking about portfolio, learning, career change, and everything, which is the interview process which happens. When you have to apply for a job. So uh, either of you could take it up and add your points and throw your insights on it.
Yeah, I think, see, though the fundamental process may remain the same, I would definitely want Sajal to, once I can talk about how the design interview process work, I would like him to brief a little bit more about the research, because the nature of work is quite different for both. So for design, it pretty much we've already insisted on the fact that how important a portfolio is. So once you have your portfolio, you apply to those companies, and one key thing I would really, really like people to kind of include in their resumes also along with the portfolio is that if you have some past experience, no matter whether it was in a different field, always try to bring about that point articulated in your resume, that what have you brought in that company, what was your roles and responsibilities, and what you contributed. That kind of tells what a person is, that if the person is a performer or if the person is just a follower, like you were given a project and you just did it. So if you kind of put that point in your resume, and along with that you have a backup of your portfolio, it ties your story very well, that this is where you were and this is what you brought about. And then also tell in your portfolio, you show that this was your learning and this is how you implied that learning. So it kind of ties a very good story. And once your portfolio or your resume is shortlisted, you most of the companies at the junior or the mid senior level, they have a design exercise, and that's more like to test how the person, because they really want to see how you work on a real time case study which they give you, and what is your, because they try to evaluate at you on a certain parameter, and that exercise gives them the leeway to kind of you evaluate you as a candidate on that those parameters. And then while you are in the interview process, the interview process can range from anything between, like, a couple of interviews to longer interview processes where they're trying to understand. One thing which is very important for designers is to make sure that while you're talking about yourself as a designer and your design journey, you also need to show how good a collaborator could you be. Because uh, having said that you could be a great designer, no company would want to hire a person who likes to work in silos. Since you have to talk to a lot of people, you have to work with user researchers, you have to work with developers, you have to work with product managers. They really want to see what your people skill is. So make sure that you, while you're in your interviews, you also highlight that how well you have worked with people in your past companies, and how you try to take differences from people, how well do you handle conflicts. So just like you first demonstrate what you are as a designer through your portfolio and in your design test, and b, you try to demonstrate yourself as a person while you put in how you work with other people. So this kind of makes you a well-rounded candidate for any kind of design job or design opening. And it also puts forward you as a very strong candidate over other people when they see that this is the kind of candidate we were actually looking for. So that gets your chances more to land at that job in the company.
Sure. Sajal, would you want to add any points to that?
Right, right. I think there's a lot of overlap on the process that Ankita mentioned. I'll just point out to some of the things which are slightly different for user research. What I'll do is I'll just divide these stages into, pre-interview, how do you apply for this, and I'll take my own personal example of let's say one of the large US MNC that I had interviewed for. So usually what happens is if you're starting out and you're entering at a level of, you're applying for a position which is user researcher entry level, so level 1 or level 2, then the companies are very particular in asking for some of your portfolio. So in design, it's portfolio. In research, you can also submit some of your past academic research work. So if you have written research paper, well and good. If you have done some sort of your own personal research project, and well and good. So I would advise people to have at least one foundational or exploratory user research where you did problem finding. The other is do a usability evaluation of a product that you feel like. If you don't have anything else, if you're from an academic background, yes, compile that into a research project that is easy to consume. So once you have that, you would send it across with your resume. And again, how do you build that resume is it's a different topic which will take more detail. But essentially, if you have a good resume and you can demonstrate your research experience in past, that will help you get shortlisted. So you will at least get a call back from those companies. So what happens next is essentially just phone interview round where the interviewer may ask you about your past experience, and uh, they will talk about your past experience and then ask you some basics about research questions. Okay, and if you are able to convince them that yes, you have that knowledge, then they will call you on site. And on site, what essentially happens is that you first start with giving a brief about your own projects. So you compile a presentation and give them, hey, these are the projects that I've done, and you give them justification that why did you pick up this method, what was your conclusion, and most importantly, what was the effect or what was the result of that finding. That with thing the difference is that there might be something very interesting but it's not useful, but there is something useful that you maybe not highlighting. So make sure that what's the finding. And then the next bit comes is that when they may give you some exercises saying that, hey, just imagine if this is the situation in this company and we want to launch a new feature. Do you think it's good to build that feature? How would we evaluate this? So what would your approach be that if you had to launch a new feature, whether you should build it or not? So they will give you some questions then and there. You have to think, be on your toes and think about it and give answer. And lastly, they will ask you questions about your past, saying that has there been any situation in past where one of your stakeholders did not agree? How did you convince them, and so on. So these kind of challenges that you might have faced. So these are the kind of questions that you will need to prepare, and for each and every stage that you give correct answer, that you will move ahead. So that, in brief, I would say is how the interview process goes.
Great. So one thing is that over the past few years, we have noticed how design as a field has evolved a lot. We have seen an immense, huge change where a lot of the design roles today did not exist, probably a decade back or probably even 5 years back. So, what do you? I think this question is more directed towards Sajal. Uh, what do you think are the future opportunities in the field of design?
Right. I think excellent point, and I think everyone is worried, not worried, but would like to know what are the future prospects. And I can tell in a couple of different aspects. So one in terms of demand of jobs or job creation. These in the recent time a lot has changed. People have been talking about new normal or what, but yes, there has been a big change. So we see essentially a lot of demand coming from the tech product side. So a lot of these tech companies did not face that big a challenge, and we see a lot of things getting transferred into digital version of it. So even those companies which were not traditionally digital, they are going digital. So they are also building products. So what happens with that is that you will need more digital product designers. You need more the more product designers you need, the more user researchers, because you will need to understand the situation is going becoming so dynamic, it's changing so much, that you need a systematic way to understand users problem, users need, and then translate that into product design. So in short term, that's going to be a boom, and you can all see the trend in which the UX design or user research is booming. Now in the longer term, what I believe is that you will see further more division. So one thing that we didn't talk about, so Ankita had mentioned that product design versus UX design and so on. And now what's happening is that the more companies are evolving and they're becoming bit mature, you'll have more specialized roles. Earlier it was just a designer who would do user research plus design, but now you have user researcher, then you have a product designer, then you have a creative person who will do copywriting also. Now we have position for UX copywriting as well, who will write the stuff. Then you have creatives which will do visual design and so on. So as we move ahead, there will be more specialized roles which will be coming forward, and the more you understand your own strengths, then you can respond to it. And the next big thing is, I think especially for user research, is that if you have a background in design and understanding of design, plus you have your understanding with data, how do you understand users data, the quantitative aspect, if you mix that, it's a amazing combination, and any company would like to hire you. So if you have got a background in technology, so use data analytics plus user research. I think you'll be the most prized position for any company, for that matter.
Great. Thank you so much, Sajal. I think we have tried to cover a lot of things, a lot of topics of design over the past 1 hour and 12 minutes. I think it would be great if Ankita, you could summarize all the topics that we have covered, so that few of the viewers who join in the middle can also get the best out of this session.
Right. I think, yeah, so we talked quite a lot today about all the various aspects of UX design and research. Just to summarize it all, I would just, like to start from situations in where the person is at this point of time in their life. So, starting with somebody who's in high school or, 11th or 12th class, where they are almost about to choose a career path. I'd say if you are really, really passionate about making a career in design, try to first get into a college which is a design college, because nothing like setting your foundation right by going to a good design college. And as we've spoken about, you can either go to NID, you can go to IIT for bachelors, you can also go to MIT in Pune, and you can read about the whole list of colleges which are there in the country for design. And if you have that kind of resources, you can also try to go out of India to pursue that education. And that ways, it will shape your career as a designer better. But having said that, it doesn't matter if you're already in your college first year and maybe you are in an engineering degree, or you are in a commerce degree, or you are in a mass comm degree. You could be in any degree, but if you are really passionate about design, you can start while you are in your course. You can start learning a little more towards design also. And because it, and please don't consider whatever course you are doing, please don't consider that course as a waste. Try to find a connection between your course and design, and I'm sure you would definitely, because it's all about user behavior. So most of these courses talk about user behavior too, maybe not in a very direct way, but possibly in an indirect way. And design is also, again, UX design and research is also all about user behavior, as your end product is going to be the user. So try to tie it and see how you can build real life examples and real life case studies, eventually to make a portfolio out of it. So whether you are in your college or whether you are a college pass out and you are trying to get into the UX design field, try to build a very strong portfolio. And for that, you can always, there are tons of case studies which are, some of those are assignments, design assignments from various companies which they have given at one point or the other. You could take up those assignments, or you could build up your own problem, or you can build up a case study from something and it, saying, having said that, it always need not be a problem. You could also see like an opportunity area, because when Facebook started, it never really was a problem. It was more like an opportunity area. So discover more an opportunity area around you which you think that you could improve an experience around here. You don't really see a problem, but this could be an improvement in the experience, and try to build around an interesting, fabulous case study on that. And for that, you can always collaborate with more people. Like, see if you can reach out to more people who are like whether a developer or maybe a researcher, and see how you can collaborate on that project to bring in the best of that case study. And while you are putting that in your portfolio, you can always mention the kind of people you have worked with. And as you're building along your portfolio, we've already stressed about a lot of tools and books and articles which you can read about, and you can find more on the internet about them. And maybe go through some of the books which Sajal suggested, those are fantastic books. And it is not always necessary that you will grasp and get those books in the first go, but that's totally okay. You've just started your journey. We don't expect you to be the expert in that. So once you start working around it, that's when you will understand more, and try to see how you can bring and understand those things simply, because we see there is a lot of confusion between UX and UI. What is wireframing versus what is this? So a lot of terms are floating around on the internet, and I would just want to tell everybody out there that be cautious while you are using those terms. While it might look fancy and it might look all very intelligent to use those terms while you are doing your case studies, but if you don't really understand the true meaning behind them, it is actually of no use. Because whoever your interviewer is in your interview process, or whoever you're talking to, or who is somebody knowledgeable about design, will automatically catch that how much you are faffing and how much you really know about that subject. So be very cautious while you're using those terms. Try to learn the basics. You don't need to know everything at the same time, because design is a process. The way design is a process, design learning is also a process. I as a designer, after so many years of experience and 2 degrees, I'm still learning as a designer. I still learn from people. And also one thing, be very, very cautious about the fact that don't belittle any of the feedback from anywhere. I still you try to take feedback not just from my peers, but also my family members, my father and my brother, who probably don't understand anything about design, but I try to understand their mental model as a person, because ultimately everybody around us is a user of the product. So just try to build case studies, take feedbacks, and eventually make a great portfolio to apply to design companies. And one thing right there, that don't always go for the big brands, go for meaningful work. We've stressed enough on this part that brands are eventually not going to help you. What will help you is what good work you've done, and good work can only be built if you try to take up something which is more meaningful rather than going just for brands. And I have seen often times candidates getting rejected because their profile looks great on paper, but the contribution they have brought in is not significant enough for the role. So if you bring in if you make in a quick ass portfolio while either working with for a small startup who are solving something amazing, or you are working for a company who's trying to make some advances in solving a very small but a very impactful problem, it's going to take you a long way. So try to learn as much as possible while you are on your design journey. And I would say one thing, that don't ever be disheartened thinking that I don't have a college degree of bachelor's or master's in design, or I didn't go to NID or IIT as an institute, or I never worked with Amazon and Google. That is not important. Brand tags will only take you so long, so far. And it's your work which is ultimately at the end of the day which is going to make you a great designer. And if you do great work, companies would reach out to you and not the vice versa.
Great. Thank you so much, Ankita, for summarizing the entire session. Before I would end the session, I would actually like to uh, thank TapChief for making all of this possible, for conducting this entire session. At the same time, if you're a beginner and you're looking for consultations, definitely go to tapchief.com and look up experts in that particular domain, and uh, get a consultation from them. Or on the other scenario, if you're someone, if you're already an experienced designer and you're looking for new gigs or new freelance projects, you can also find that on tapchief.com. With that, I would like to thank both Ankita and Sajal. It was a brilliant experience talking to both of you. Eh, I mean, there is just so much I can learn from both of you. Uh, Thank you so much for being in this conversation with us. Uh, at the same time answering so many live questions. Yeah, it- all I can say is this was a very great experience for me. Uh, Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kaushik, for joining
yeah,
us.
I think I would also say it was a great experience for me, and I hope that our conversation, our discussions were helpful to all the viewers out there. So yeah,
Thank you so much for all the people who joined in and for all the wonderful questions they've asked. We really, honored to be here and happy to be answering and helping out people who have been asking questions here.
Great. Again, I would like to thank everyone who joined and stayed throughout the session with us. At the same time, they were asking so many. All of you were asking so many questions on the comment section. Thank you so much. This session, you guys definitely added the element to another element to the session. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
all
Yep.
right, thank you.